Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to Wednesday Night Reviews. I'm your host, Konrad, and joining me today is Chris Barnes, who we've interviewed previously about Omega Squad, and we're now going to discuss their second book, Omega Squad Legion. So, Chris, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Wonderful. So, um, obviously, it's not actually been all that long since the last time we spoke. So, the first volume came out, I got my hands on it, and we did our interview, and it's been a few months,
Yeah.
and now you've got volume two out. So, what's new?
What's new? What's new in volume two? Um,
Nice.
volume two is right here. And the main thing that's new, the first thing anyone who gets it will notice is new, is that it's in color, full color, with like real comic book style pages. Um, that's the main thing that's new with this book. But it's yeah, we talked only a few months ago, and I really rushed. No, I shouldn't say rushed. I worked hard to get
Yes.
it out before Christmas, and it hit Amazon just before Christmas. Um, and what's new? There's like new bad guys, new story arc, obviously, because it sort of got
Yep.
wrapped up in the first volume, and it leads into a third book. There's a nice cliffhanger ending, so that I know that I have to write a third book. Yeah, so that's the main thing that's new, I guess. Really, with me, with this is
Perfect. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
one thing when you sent me the copy to do the review of, the first thing I actually noticed, having gone, like you said, within a very short period from one to two, uh, basically within the first page or even within your acknowledgments section with the art that was in it, your art style has become much cleaner, I'll say. And because of how you made your first book, chunks here and there were certain inconsistencies or differences just from the method, which is to be expected. But you've gone through really well, and now it's super consistent. Like you said, you put a lot of work in. Um, so the actual method of making your book, what changed? How did you get it done this fast, and this well?
yeah, okay. So the first book was all by hand. So I drew it on just cardstock paper in pencil, like erased that a bunch, and then with
Mm-hmm.
the micron pens or whatever, all like inked by hand, and then um, I left it as line art for a long time, and then I went back and I tried to like full color it in with Copic markers, and I thought this is going to be stupid expensive, so I stopped doing that. And then I grayscale colored it with gray markers, and but all on the paper itself. Everything was on the paper, and so this time, and so that took over a span of time. Like that was, oh, I'll work on this here and there and whatever. And like I say, it took like about 4 years to finish that first book,
Mm-hmm.
which is a long time for like 97 pages. This book, the process, what changed really in the process for this is most of it's digitally made. So in the meantime, well, like 3 issues into the first book, I got a little Samsung Tab Pro S, so it
Mm-hmm.
uses a pen, which I had to like outsource, like not outsource, that's the wrong word. Search for Samsung was like, here's the pen that goes with this. It's like you go find the pen that's also a Samsung thing that goes with it, but we're not going to tell you. It's a big pain in the butt. Anyways, so this book, the second book is the pencils are on paper because I like to draw.
Oh, awesome.
So the pencils are all on paper, but none. That's it. So then I scanned it and used Sketchbook Pro or Sketchbook. It's really convoluted because I don't know what I'm doing. Uh,
You figuring it
uh,
out?
yeah, I figured it out, but I didn't know what I was going to start with. So I used Sketchbook to ink it, and then I used Sketchbook Pro to do the flat, colors, and
Okay.
then I used Photoshop to do the shading. So it was a bit of a step process.
Okay.
But I had the idea to get it I wanted this. Oh, I can get a second one out. And so instead of just I'll work on this here and there, it's like okay, like I am typically awake at 5-ish in the morning, and so from 5 till 7, I work on the comic book, and then on my lunch break, I work on the comic book, and then again the next day, and then the baby's gone to bed, but the wife's taken the young lad to hockey, and right now you can only have one person at hockey, thanks COVID. So I got an hour and a half to myself, so I work on the comic book, and it was just bang, 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 bang,
Wow.
methodical, which was great in some ways. Like you say, the first book, there's definitely inconsistencies in there. Not only in sort of the art style, because it did progress over 4 years,
Oh
but
yeah.
like you notice that Anya's hair goes from being colored in darkish to just being white because I needed the contrast with Zoe's hair. So,
Yeah.
and I didn't actually notice. I didn't even notice that until I held the book in my hand. I was like, "Oh, oops,
Huh.
maybe I should have kept that consistent."
Eh.
But whatever. And so putting in the hours one after the next really helped keep it consistent for one, but like looking consistent and the style is consistent, and there's not as much like artistic growth in the drawings themselves. There is a bunch in the coloring and stuff, but the drawings themselves are there isn't that massive shift like you were saying during your first interviews. Like the first panel of this page and the last panel of that page, they're very different in the first book. In the second book, it's pretty. Oh, this is what it looks like.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it definitely feels like with volume two now you've fully found your style of drawing. But yeah, having the colors the way you've done it, the shading. In particular, I liked actually when I was going through it within the first few pages, all the characters are investigating a sort of an attack that happens on a space base, and they're all wearing these classic style like domed space helmets. But you've
Yeah.
got like I don't want to. I guess like a glow and aura about the edge to it. I
Mm.
like that effect. Your effects now where you've got sort of like that glowing light effect around a certain set of objects. It's cool. It adds a lot of dynamics to your art, and I appreciate that. So it was good to see as a growth of
Yeah.
things.
Thanks. I had a Batman book. It was like a Riddler, like a one-off Riddler book, and he's like this is when I was I don't know 16 or 17 maybe
Hmm.
18, and he's got a flashlight. Batman's got a flashlight, and it blew my mind then, and kind of still does now. That like it looked bright on the page, and I was like, how do you do that? And now I know how to do it. So that's great. So yeah, yeah. Which like even I put some of that art like right in the first in the sort of the opening bit. Like there's the
Yes,
gun and the
exactly.
gloves. Yeah. And yeah, that it took a little figuring out to figure that out. But like I say, I think I mentioned it while we were talking before. I was watching Francis Manipul's YouTube about how to do the shading and stuff, highlights and shading, and I just applied that same method into like, oh, I want this to be bright, so the mask is
Oh,
white instead of a color, and it's over top of things instead of blending with them. Yeah, so
go figure.
so
Um,
it's cool to learn.
yeah, good job, man. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Um, and so yeah, like for the people out there watching, give us a synopsis. What is Volume Two Legion all about?
Oh man, I'm so bad at this. Um, People are like, "What's your book about?" I'm like, I don't know, space. No. So what happens in the second book is, yeah, like you say, in the first issue, in the first 20 pages or so. They're investigating this space station. This was sent a distress call, and during that investigation, they find a couple scientist guys, but they also run into like this monster, this mutant-ish monster, and it's sort of revealed along the way that someone is converting just whoever into these same sort of monsters. He's on the back, so it's not huge spoilers by showing that.
Yes.
Yeah, so everyone, they got blue skin and they got the hair and they got the red eyes and blue eye details and stuff. And so they run into some trouble along the way, as happens in stories, so that there's something to read. And maybe they overcome. You can probably guess whether they do or not without reading the book, but you'll see how they do it if you read it. And yeah, I think that covers it, right? That's a
Yeah.
summary of that story. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like you said, it's from what I was going through, like definitely got that sort of military style space drama. I absolutely love the two scientists. Again, with much love of yours for pop culture, absolute riot to read and to get to go through it and see your interpretation of those characters. Uh, so yes, it was much love, and again, the return that you have of certain characters as well, with respect to your last book. Again, don't want to give spoilers away. It'd be so easy, but I don't want to
It
do it.
would be crazy.
Yeah, it'd be too easy. But I think people ought to read it because it's a lot of fun. Um,
Thanks.
yeah, like it is a genuine. It's a very fun book. When you sent it to me to review it, I wanted to make sure I could go through and actually uh, get as much out of it as I could. And usually, what I like to try and do is, especially if it's like something as big as this, like your book here, it's the digital file that you sent me is 115 pages. So take out the two in the front and the couple of pages in the back where you show your sketch gallery and all that kind of stuff. Then you're left with like 108 or something, 110 pages total. It's quite a bit of book. I usually like to try and sit it, read a few pages or 20 pages, stop, let me sit on it, think on it, read the next 20, sit. I found that I just kind of kept going and going because the story that you're telling here is it's simple enough that like a kid or myself can just pick it up and enjoy it. It's very fun. It's like Star Wars, right? There's on its face value, you don't have to have this huge, backstory and all of this stuff. You could just kind of get into it and enjoy it. At the same time, there's enough there that you can pick into, especially when you start going into characters' back histories, which you cover in this book. But yeah, you can really delve in and sort of get a little more meticulous with it with your information, which I kind of appreciated. That you could just, like I said, pick up and I had a good time just going through it. I was like, oh, all right, well, boom, all of a sudden I'm on page 100 and I'm like, oh, well, I could stop, but I've only got a few left. Might as well. Um, and yeah, even within this book, I think there's a level of improvement that you go through as well. Although it's not clearly, like you said, as noticeable because you've done this in such a short period of time. I am curious, how quick did you do this one? Like in comparison,
Uh,
obviously, quite a bit faster, but
yeah. So the first book I published to Amazon in, well, I think we talked about the whole nightmare I had of publishing that first one.
yeah,
Uh, Trying to make it fit within the margins. So it's July, I think. June, yeah. So June 10th, the first one sort of was available, and I took a month, like because it was a bit of work there, and I played a bunch of video games, and then in my spare time, not that I have a lot of spare.
yeah,
And so then I started in July, yeah, with the second one. So I gave myself a month break, and I'm going to start. And so July, so in the month of from July 10th to August 10th, I finished the first 20 pages completely, like colors, word bubbles, everything. And then, no, not word bubbles. I hadn't done the word bubbles yet. No, not the word bubbles yet. And then in from August 10th to the end of our quarantine when we showed up here, I finished the second 20 pages. So there isn't like like in the DC book you get like the issue covers at the end. I didn't do that. I thought about doing that, and then I was like, then I have to draw a cover for each book, and that's not easy. So I didn't do that. But then so September, October, November, and then December 10th, I was finished. That was my goal. Like, so those 3 months, I did crank out the other 60 pages. But the summer months there, I didn't have to go to work, right? Like we were on shutdown and
Yeah,
whatever.
shutdown and lockdown. Yeah.
Yeah, and so those like September, October, November, and the first bit of December was all like before work at 5 in the morning, and at lunch at work, and sort of an evening here and there when people are all when it's just me and the baby's gone to bed and all that jazz. So what's that? July, August, September, October, November, and well, not really, but 5 months. Five
Wow.
months and just over 100 pages, plus a couple covers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. That is a lot. But as we discussed, yeah, exactly. But you found your process. Uh,
Yeah.
I am very curious. So going into, as you mentioned earlier,